Hello, welcome to another review of a Leica product. My name is Oz Yilmaz, and I'm a professional photographer who happens to love Leica products. Today, I'm going to discuss two different lenses. One is called the Noctilux f0.95 and the previous versions. Now, in this first part of this review, I will mention the history, so we are very familiar with the way the lens works. Later on, I will show the applications on the second part of our video, and I'm hoping that you will watch the second part as well. Now, the Noctilux is a very special lens because it is one of the fastest lenses in the world. At the current time, 0.95 lens is reputed to be the fastest 50mm in the market. Now, I want to take you back in the history where it all began. First, Noctilus was designed by Helmut Marx. It featured a very unique design which allowed it to be at 1.2 aperture, which was a very fast lens at the time. It featured 6 elements in 4 groups, and the lens had double aspherical surfaces. Now, the lens remained in production from 1966 all the way to 1975, but because it was very hard to produce, there were only 1,700 units ever made. When Dr. Walter Mandler was stationed in Canada, he took this design and brought it to a new level. The design was an improvement on the original version, which allowed it to capture more light at f1.0. The design, of course, featured a new introduction of lens elements, which meant that we would have 7 elements in 6 groups. The lens that you see here is one of Dr. Mandler's design. The lens was very special, but it remained in production for almost 30 years with minor changes. The weight of the lens remained the same. The elements and the grouping remained the same. Built-in lenses were introduced in 1993. The first production phase was from 1976 to 1978, and then proceeded from 1978 to 1982. From 1982, we had production to 1993. Now, that period marks a period where everything was pretty much done by hand. All the grinding, all the surfaces, they were done to produce a lens that became legendary. And the weight was at 580 grams. Now, the next phase was from 1993 to 2008, which marked the last period of Dr. Mandler's design. But the lens had changes that were introduced. And these changes meant that the weight of the lens would go up. And it did. It became 630 grams. Now, it featured, as I said, built-in lens hood, which reduced the flares. The final stage of the production was phased out, and of course, Leica Canada, as we know, L10 was sold, and the production was continued in Germany. Now, the new version of the lens, which you see here, is at 0.95. Was designed by Peter Carr. Also designed the Similux 50mm or the 75mm Summicron Apo f2. This design is very unique because this design allowed the lens to capture 11% more light. Of course, the design was changed with 8 elements in 5 groups. The weight went up to 700 grams from 630. As a result, this lens became the new Noctilux. One important feature, though, about this lens is the inclusion of 6-bit coding, which allows the lens to communicate with the digital cameras, virtually marking the new era of digital cameras to be used on Leica products. Now, at one point you will understand when we discuss the use of this lens why this is so important, especially in terms of vignetting and the correction of other elements. But until then, let's continue talking about this lens, which features a lens hood that extends, which is a beautiful thing. It has a E60 filter thread, which means a 60mm thread, which was also used in the previous versions, and is significantly larger than other Leica lenses. Comparably, if you put this next to a 50mm Summicron Apple, you will find that this lens is significantly bigger and weighs about twice as much. But it has a very unique characteristics, one being the bokeh. Bokeh, which comes from the word from Japanese, means the out of focus area, which, as you know, determines how the subject is in relation to the background. Now, certain types of photography, like portrait photography, requires to have bokehs that will isolate the subject from the background. Other times, you would want to use a lens like this at wide open aperture to capture photographs in low light situations. That we shall get into in the next part of our video. Thank you for watching.